Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining us at Recruitable Hub. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks so much, Kate, for the invite. It's great to be here joining you today.
Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Matt, can you please let us know, for the sake of people watching this, your company name and your position in the company?
Sure. I work for a company called VIQ Solutions, and we're a company that provides both technology services as well as transcription service to a range of different industries globally. And my role at the business is Managing Director of the Asia Pacific operations of our greater global business.
Okay, awesome. And so, are you currently hiring? Do you do a lot of recruitment within your business?
Yeah, we have a number of different roles, I guess, that support our business on a day-to-day basis. So we've got a reasonably large pool of people, maybe 400 odd in our market space, and so as a consequence of that, we're constantly in recruitment mode, just dealing with our natural attrition as part of our business, and of course supporting our growth models and expectations. Recruitment is necessary to facilitate the growth of the business.
Okay, awesome. So, Matt, could you help us by giving us an example of an applicant? So, talking first of all about resumes. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there at the moment looking for work. There's not many positions out there comparatively to job hunters. The stat I heard the other day was 135 job seekers to one position. So what we want to do here at Recruitable Hub is help people stand out from the crowd and really help them land that job that they're after. Could you give an example of a resume or an applicant who has applied with you? I'm assuming you hired them, who was a real standout, and what was it about their resume that was unforgettable?
Yeah, good question, Kate. Kate, of course, the resume is the first part of the process for us, at least. So it really is important to make sure that that part of the process is correct and accurate. Most of the people that we're looking for, there's a requirement for them to be very accurate and detailed in their work. So we're looking for those types of things right from the get-go, from the CV. So, grammar, English is paramount. We receive, hundreds of applications, of course, for each of our jobs, as you mentioned, and often some of them can come from overseas or, from locally. But it's really important to make sure that the attention to detail is there in terms of the grammar and spelling of the resume.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the other parts of it, we're of course looking for particular skills in the job, and so it's important to tailor resumes and CVs specifically for the roles, in my opinion, that you're applying for. So the standout ones, from my point of view, are certainly those applicants that take the time to understand what the requirements are of the role, and specifically address those in the CV and talk about their experiences or their skills that they have that essentially addresses each of those requirements that we're looking for as part of the role. And so people who've kind of taken the time to understand a bit about our business and to try to get as much insight as possible out of the job adverts or from the information, and nailing each of the individual objectives that we might be looking for in the role right from the CV.
Okay, awesome. And what about talking about cover letters? Do you expect your candidates to write a cover letter?
Absolutely, yes. We see cover letters as being very, very important. And I guess the main rationale for that is that grammar and English is a big part of most of our roles. And so we're looking for style that people are using and language that they're using as part of their CVs. It's a really nice way to express yourself in a professional and positive way to attach to a CV that can be perhaps a little more factual and specific. We're looking for a little bit of creativity flair in terms of the language and the way that they're expressing themselves in the form of a letter.
Right. Okay. So you like their personality to come through in their cover letter? Or?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of show a little bit about your personality in the cover letter in terms of, what personally drives you and what interested you about this particular role in the company that you're working for. And I think the letter is the right opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit about you and why this role is of interest to you specifically.
Okay, fantastic. And have you got any examples that you can give us of the most remarkable candidate that you've come across, or one of? I imagine there's been many, but why were they such a standout?
Yeah, okay. So I think there's recently we recruited a senior operations manager for our business, and they spent, whilst they came from a different background to our industry segment, what they looked to achieve as part of their resume and their covering letter was to look at what the key objectives of the role were and draw parallels between the industry that they were working in to our industry. So typically we would normally look for people who've got some experience or background in our industry, but this person has now successfully joined the company and has come from a completely different industry, but was able to demonstrate to us as part of the CV screening process that whilst they didn't come from the background of our industry, they made it clear to us as the reader of their CV why their skills were transparent and useful for our organisation and industry. And it was a beautifully orchestrated CV and covering letter.
Oh, okay, that's great. And I think that's so relevant at the moment as well, because there are many people, for instance, from the travel industry, anyone related to the travel industry, hospitality as well, especially, that there's a lot of people having to pivot at the moment, which seems to be the word of 2020. So that's really great to hear that you did actually not only consider somebody coming from a different industry, but you in fact hired them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So was that demonstrated in their CV, or was it demonstrated in their cover letter, or both?
It was actually both. Yeah, they'd actually specifically looked at each of in the CV, they had actually looked at the items that we'd included in the job advert and actually listed those as headings, and then spoke about their skill in the different jobs that they had previously worked in, and addressed each of those items in their CV. And then they gave us a bit of a flavour to that as part of the introduction to themselves in the CV, in the letter, I should say, as well. So they actually had blended that very well.
Right. Okay. Awesome. That's fantastic. How are they going in the role?
Yeah, we're kind of into, I think it's week 3 at the moment, but so far it's going well. She's incredible, and I think it's helpful for us as a business sometimes to have people from outside, because you get different ideas and suggestions about how different businesses and industries operate, and we're all learners. We continue to learn every day of our lives, and my experience of bringing people from outside is that we can learn a lot from other industries and the way things do. And whilst the industries are different, a lot of the basic processes that you'd expect in an office environment, are pretty consistent in terms of the way transactions should flow through, and what sort of operational requirements are necessary to support the flow of transactions through your business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely true. And I think that we can tend to have an unconscious bias towards people within the industry that we're working in. And I do think that employers tend to get stuck wanting someone to have industry specific experience. And as a result,
Yeah.
we miss out on a lot of potential talent.
And I think a lot of that comes as well back from, business, and sometimes people draw conclusions, based upon one bad example. But I think, as a business leader, we've all got examples of people that we've brought into the business that were perhaps not necessarily the right fit for a variety of reasons, but we shouldn't always make decisions based upon a couple of those bad examples, and that there are certainly, very fine examples such as this individual that's recently joined us, that's come from a different background that's working out really well.
Fantastic. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. So last but not least, do you have any tips for people who are applying for jobs, the interview process, anything to do with securing yourself a role?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, I think, is putting yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. So really take the interviewer or the company and really having a think about that company that you're applying for a position with, to understand what their objectives and goals are and what they want to get out of the role, and making sure that you're tailoring your approach both in the written form before you get to an interview stage, but also an interview, to just really make sure that you're not giving generic responses to the questions, that you're thinking about what the role is and what that company's objectives and what they're trying to do to make sure that you're fitting in with that. Because, you know, as an employer, we're interviewing and looking at hundreds of CVs. What we're looking for is something that's different, and that someone's really taken the time and attention to understand a bit about what we're doing and to focus their approach on the business. And one of the things that I always encourage candidates to do is to think about what that typical interview question is. What would you do in the first 60 days of employment in the new role? And so if you think about that question going into the interview, and whilst it might not necessarily be asked, I think it's a really important one, because it gets you really in the frame of mind of thinking about what this business needs and what you're going to do, how you're going to give value to that business. Because ultimately, as an interviewer or as someone assessing candidates, what I'm trying to understand as part of this process is, how can you make my life better? What can you contribute to my business to make our business a better place? And so if you're already in that mindset going into the interview and demonstrating that you're thinking about what's in it for the business, then you're certainly you know, in a very good position for interview and ultimately selection for the role.
Yeah, great. Thank you. They're really, really helpful tips. I think being authentic in the interview and prepared, and really knowing why you're there and why you want that job will certainly come across in the interview. And like you say, when you interview so many people, it can get really tedious and boring.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, it's a tough gig on both sides, finding the right people and also for the applicants. And there's a lot of work that gets involved in the process. And ultimately, you know, we're making a decision as a business based upon, you know, an hour or half an hour meeting somebody to essentially get married to them and, you know, have a long-term working relationship. So we have such a short window of opportunity to make that decision. So the more preparation that can be put in and the more thought that can go into it, as hard as that is and as difficult as that is, because you need to prepare for so many interviews and so many jobs, it really is about the effort that you put in prior to getting in front of a company that's really going to make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And it's well worth it, even though it's tiring and it's hard work having to tailor your cover letter and your CV to every role you're going for. You have to do it, because otherwise there's actually no point sending it in.
You're wasting your time. Absolutely. Yeah.
You can read through a generic cover letter of Quick Smart, can't you? You can see.
Yeah.
Especially when they forget to change the name of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that the preparation is really important. It is hard work, you know, finding a job, but those people will be rewarded of the ones that, you know, really put the effort in. And as we all know, we all learn from our mistakes and our things. So there's no such thing as, you know, such bad thing as giving it a go and trying different techniques for different applications and seeing, you know, what is working and what's not working. But definitely investment of time up front will definitely pay dividends in the end.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
You're welcome. Great to see you. Thank you, Kate.
Okay, thanks.